Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, featuring the sharpest minds in marketing, inspirational case histories, and weekly insights you can apply to your business. Find out why top CMOs rank this podcast among their favorites. Now, here's your host, Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
My guest today is Diana O'Brien, CMO for Deloitte's U.S. and global operation. Deloitte, by the way, employs approximately 245,000 people in 150 countries and territories and provides a broad range of professional services, not the least of which is marketing consulting. I bring this up because Diana also leads the C-Suite CMO program, which we will no doubt talk about a bit on this show. She has been included in Forbes' World's Most Influential CMOs and Business Insider's Top 50 Most Innovative CMOs in the world. Diana has been with Deloitte since 1985, and I believe is the first mother of triplets we've had on the show. I'm actually quite certain of that. So Diana, it's wonderful to be here in person in New York at Deloitte.
Thanks so much for having me.
So I have many questions for you, but first, those triplets. I mean, my God, instant family.
Instant family. They're 23 years old now. And when I was actually making partner when I was early in that time of my life, so I was not prepared to be a partner and a mother at the same time. I took a little bit of time off, but I found when I came back, it was well worth it, and we both navigated the journey together.
Amazing. Well, there's a movie that came out recently called Instant Family, and
I saw it. Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did see it.
Oh,
yeah.
Good. And did you like it?
I did like it.
Oh, that's awesome. My dad will be happy because there's an adoption service that he or it's not adoption is the wrong word, but that he's been involved with, Seneca, and
Wonderful.
They were an advisor of it.
Oh, perfect.
Anyway, so I'm so glad you saw it. He'll be happy. Yes. Okay. So we're not going to do Renegade Rapid Fire, but in the Renegade Rapid Fire, there is the question: what's the most renegade thing you've done in your career?
The most renegade thing I've done is I left doing day-to-day consulting to go lead and open Deloitte University, which is our learning leadership center in Dallas, Texas. It's a hotel with 800 rooms. It has 36 classrooms and all kinds of innovative settings to collaborate together. And I knew nothing about running a hotel or developing learning programs for our people. I had previously been 100% focused on delivering to clients in the marketplace. So it was absolutely out of my comfort zone and brand new for our firm. We didn't have it previously.
And what was the sort of stated mission of the university, and who's taking the classes, first of all?
All of our professionals go to Deloitte University, and the purpose is to build leaders. We need to grow the best leaders, and we need to inspire and create thought leadership. And that's why we created it, was to create a place where our people could thrive.
And so since founding, at this point, how many employees have gone through the program, do you think?
Well, every one of our professionals in the U.S. has gone through the one in Dallas. We have operations now in other markets, and professionals in those countries are going through those. So every professional connects to Deloitte University.
And one of the big things that we've been talking a lot about with clients is, particularly in a case where we're in a full employment economy, just getting employees on board with the purpose of the organization. This seems like an incredible opportunity to inculcate the values and the purpose and get them really excited at the same time to deliver value to them.
Absolutely. We have a thinking that Deloitte University is more than a place. It's a mindset. It's that you carry with you everywhere you're a leader, and at any moment you could be asked to lead. And that's leading a team meeting. That could be leading a client conversation. It's that we're leaders, and we need to be prepared to do that. And so culturally, it is the soul of our firm. I mean, it represents the best of us. And that's what you get when you're there. You're in a safe place to learn and practice and be with your peers to grow.
So as you look back at starting this thing, what do you think sort of were the biggest challenges that you had to overcome?
Well, one of the biggest challenges was sort of overcoming me. I was not a supporter in the beginning.
Oh.
Our CEO championed it and said we need to make developing our people a fixed asset, and we aren't going to back down on that. And I said, we've got all this e-learning. Why do we need to do that? And he said, Diana, you're going to go run this place. You're going to open it, run it, and I'm going to prove it to you. And he was right. I was wrong.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for that admission, and also with sort of the truth of any sort of CMO knows that if your CEO isn't behind something, it doesn't happen. But it's interesting that this was in reverse.
It was in reverse.
Yeah. So, okay. And as you've looked back on this now, what do you think are some of the key lessons learned that other, as companies are trying to build a culture, have everybody focused on the same sort of plan? What did this particular experience teach you about sort of bringing employees into the fold?
Well, the first was leadership alignment. Barry took it seriously that he would make sure that we got everybody involved and had their feedback. So we had something called bricks and clicks where people could decide between the two and give feedback. He wanted leaders engaged. And then he was hand-to-hand combat to go to different partners and help to convince them why this was important. So leadership alignment was one. The second was just when you made the decision not to look back, to be bold. We entered a downturn. All kinds of things were negative. People said, why are we doing that? Shouldn't we just back off? I know we already spent that bit of money, but do we have to spend the rest? And we stuck to the commitment and said, no, we just said this is going to be a fixed asset. We're going to do that. And then finally, it was engaging all of our people. So for example, we set up test beds. Our people travel all around the world to serve our clients. And we had them go in and test the mattress, try the pillows. We had everybody try to get on the internet at the exact same time just to make sure that they were part of the process. So engaging our people, leadership alignment, and then sticking to the decision that, we did something bold and we weren't going to turn back on that.
And the easy reason it was you could stick with the decision because you knew that this is fundamental to the organization.
Yes.
That you aren't going to succeed in the long term unless you have a culture of leadership that you've trained these folks. I wonder now, I can just imagine there's some bonding that happens also as a result, because this is a common experience that every Deloitter, I don't know if there's a noun, but every person who works at Deloitte has now had this as a common experience.
That's right.
And that's sort of, it's one of the reasons I think, as a society, we struggle because we don't have any common touchstones.
Yes.
It's like everybody went into the military service in the Greatest Generation and they had that kind of common thing.
Right.
So you've sort of forced, in a sense, hey, we're all going to boot camp together.
Exactly. And that's exactly when we do it. Different milestones they attend. So it might be at a promotion point. It might be at a new hire within 90 days of starting. Different people attend at different points for that exact reason, to build a sense of community. We once built that in local offices, when I started with the firm 30 years ago. That's how we built it. It isn't like that today. We're virtual. We travel around the world. You're not as connected. This allows us to be face to face. And I think it's critical and something we shouldn't underestimate.
And interesting that it is emphasized as face to face. And we talk about that a lot. It's amazing in a digital world. The first thought is, well, we'll just Slack it or SMS it and so forth. Yet businesses are finding that events are their best way of generating sales.
It's the key.
It's sort of this trend and counter trend.
Right.
Face-to-face really matters even more now.
It really matters even more now. I completely agree with that.
Interesting. Okay. So, so you have this moment in time where you go to the training and you're all psyched and you're working for how do you keep sort of back? Are there graduate level programs? And how does the education continue?
Yeah. So the education is, certain sequences go. So one, for example, would be art of empathy. Then we move into the art of the story. Then we move into art of inquiry. So there's a series of things that you do over time, but they're tied to, again, milestones. So maybe promotion. Partners go to certain things, senior managers, or even teams. What we find is it's a little less linear, and it's more, if you have a team working together, your team will go and take training together so that you can operate more effectively. We have a system called business chemistry, and it helps us not just work together as a team more effectively, but also work with the client. And so sometimes we actually bring the client in to be part of that training with us.
So the first one on the list was empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh knows that was sort of just finished Doris Kearns Goodwin's latest book on leadership. Mm-hmm. And, that comes out so loud and clear in Lincoln that he was an incredibly empathetic person. And I wonder, as we look at the leaders that we admire, even, that they all have this characteristic. Is that something that you can teach?
Yes, you can teach empathy, particularly by helping people understand differences and how to help people feel that they belong. So we have a whole framework on understanding how people like to be interacted with. If you know how someone wants to be interacted with, you can adjust to respond to what makes them feel most comfortable and safe. And when people feel that, they feel more open and more willing to share. And so if you are someone who is likes to have tons of ideas and generate lots of energy, you might not want a detailed agenda and 25 decks of pre-reads sent to you ahead of time. You might want to go right into the conversation. Someone else who maybe is what we in our conversations we call guardians. We have 4. It's drivers, integrators, pioneers, and guardians. And in the case of a guardian, you might want to, if you were meeting with a guardian, for example, you might want to send a pre-read ahead of time, because they might like to prepare so that they could feel more confident when they get to the meeting. And so practicing that and anticipating that and hunching that for people allows our teams to work more effectively. And what we know is when you have all of those elements on a team, you're more successful. We know that. We have data to prove it. So we help people to understand and think through what it means to walk in someone else's shoes. It's actually our I would say our anchor attribute that makes us a good consultant.
It's a great word. It fits right into this sort of, you can't be, it always starts with listening and sort of really thinking before you speak. You can't be empathetic if you're talking.
Right.
Right. It's also, it's an art form in many ways, but it is one that's interesting that you can teach it, because we always think about people who are naturally.
Yes.
So, all right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, there are so many more questions that I have for you. So stay with us. Did you know that Renegade Thinkers Unite was ranked number 2 of the top 10 podcasts for CMOs by Crackerjack Marketing? Wow, we're really honored. Now, we couldn't do that without amazing guests, and we've had some amazing CMOs on this show, and also terrific listeners like you all. If you like what we do here, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player. That way, you'll never miss an episode. Also, as a special thanks, I'd like to send you a free ebook on Renegade Thinkers. Now for that, just email drew@renegade.com. Now let's get back to the show. Okay, we're back, and my guest is Diana O'Brien, the CMO for Deloitte's U.S. and global operation. We've been talking about the importance of empathy. The second one on your list was storytelling, and being a storyteller, which is a subject of great interest to me. Again, we could go back to Lincoln, who practiced his stories on the Ninth Circuit as a young lawyer, so that when he finally got to office, he had a story for everything. And in fact, in Doris Goodwin's book, all 4 of those leaders she talks about are all great storytellers and had learned the skill. It isn't something that you can walk in and say, okay, you're a good storyteller.
Right.
So what do you teach?
We teach the elements of how to connect to your story, to the person and the issues, and to inspire them from that. So it really, in the storytelling class, we focus on one, practicing, but as she did, and it describes in that book, and Lincoln did, you've got to develop your own stories and then understand how they connect to issues. And so we help people work on those stories so that they can capture someone's attention early on with the story.
And is any of this trying to connect their personal story, the individual Deloitte employee, to the larger Deloitte story? And is conversation of that, or is it really just about helping them understand the craft?
It's a little bit of both. I'd say it's definitely the craft is what we practice in the room. But what we're talking about is how is the story relevant? So I have a story about my grandfather who helped with convincing Henry Ford to put seatbelts in cars. Well, that ties, in my view, when I'm talking to CMOs about learning the language, because what my grandfather did when he convinced Henry Ford was not talk about the number of deaths or accidents. He talked about the financial implications to not putting seatbelts in cars to his company's survival. So my story connects to the things that CMOs need to think about when they're thinking about the language they use, whether it's financial language or risk language, talking to other members of the C-suite.
Yeah. I mean, there's a famous story when the folks at Unilever were trying to sell in the campaign for Real Beauty, and what they wanted to get the board excited about this. Well, they had gone and done interviews, video interviews with the grandchildren of the board members to sort of gather and capture their self-esteem issues. And so just showing that tape, it was done. It's a great story to share, but it also speaks to the power of, we're not going to talk about, the issue of how much more soap we're going to sell. We're going to say, you're dealing with this is a major sort of social issue that you can be a part of. And oh, by the way, we'll probably sell more soap.
Right.
Okay. So again, both empathy and storytelling revolve carefully on listening.
Yes.
Right. And both of them sort of come back to this larger notion in my mind of the importance of a CMO being artful and being able to tell a story about what it is, why they're doing what they're doing, both to, or not just both, to obviously prospects, but to customers and to employees.
Right.
All three.
Yeah.
And in each case, storytelling can be a very powerful way of engaging.
The only one I'd add to that too, I think it also is to the C-suite, because the CMO, one of their jobs is to embed the customer mindset into the strategy. The only way to do that is for them to listen to the agenda of their C-suite members. Organizations have to be networked and collaborate. C-suites don't always do that. The C-suite can sometimes operate in silos. That's where I think the storytelling of a CMO, internal and elevating their role, is to be focused there, is to figure that out.
Okay, so let's break that down. So we're listening to the board to understand how they think and what's important to them.
And the other executives.
Yeah. So again, that's always a big issue with CMO and CEO and board. They don't speak the same language.
Exactly.
And I get that. This allows me to circle back into a study that you all did with the CMO Council.
Right.
And you talk in that research, it said the number one thing was being the voice of the customer at the leadership table.
Right.
I know these are slightly different things.
No, yeah, it's the same, yeah.
But what does it mean to be the voice of the customer at the leadership table?
It means I need to bring insights that help us differentiate ourselves. I need to bring thoughtfulness into the strategy on how we're going to grow. I can't just think of brand and promotional campaigns. I have to think of what's our business strategy, and I need to bring competitive insights, differentiating ideas, new business models to that strategy, so that what we do when we make choice to do something in the marketplace, the customer was at the center. We did it around what the customer needed. And so I think of marketing not as the message anymore, but as the mindset and the meaning in the organization. So I put a big umbrella around it. It used to be this little M that was the message. Now it's about the big M's, which I think are mindset. Is the customer mindset at the executive level? And is that customer mindset in the hearts of all of our people so they can go out and be a brand ambassador? Do they understand what it means, who we are, what is our purpose? Connecting to that meaning is key.
Okay, many wonderful thoughts in there that I want to sort of unpack, as some folks might say. Okay, one is customer insights. Henry Ford, of course, famously said, if customer knew what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So when we talk about customer insights, it's very difficult to find innovation from them necessarily. And so because we've agreed that we have to be innovative and we have to be unique as strategically, and that it's the marketer's role to help the company find that. So how do we get from customer insight to real innovation? Yeah.
The customer insight piece, I think, it's not just it's understanding what who the customer is, where they're going, the platforms that they want to be connected to, the experience they want to be a part of, and then co-create with them. So it's being part of an iterative feedback loop with them. And, to be honest, the CFO, the CRO, the chief strategy officer, they're not doing that. And the people in marketing and the CMO need to be doing that.
So this is the CMO working within his organization to help sort of, okay, product development people, can you make this? We think there's some information of insight over here. financial people. Help us model what this might be. So you're talking about having the marketers sort of drive innovation internally.
Right. Deep understanding so that the innovation comes out of R&D or comes out of one of the business units. Exactly. So we're the feeder to
right.
them.
And as we talk about innovation, because it's one of those things that is easy to talk about, yet we can only point to a handful of organizations that are truly innovative just because everybody else sort of follows the trends of whatever's happening, right? So every B2B marketer is doing content marketing, and they're doing it all right now, all in the same way. How do you, from a consulting standpoint, sort of look at it and make sure that your clients are actually really innovating versus sort of just following the latest sort of best practices?
Sure. Well, I want to step back for a second, because
Right.
I think the first one is, how does organizations innovate? So part of it is the way that you think about the market and your purpose. So for us, one of the things I'm most proud of is how we have activated our purpose. So let me just give you one example. The Ocean Cleanup Foundation is an organization in the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. We created a partnership with them to clean up the oceans. That's their sole singular purpose. For us, that's an activation of our purpose in our organization, where we're then able to bring all kinds of things around cyber, technology, robotics, to actually get the Ocean Cleanup Project, which is a true societal issue, to help them use innovation to solve what they're doing. So I feel like it's where we can connect our competencies to an organization's purpose is our purpose, to make an impact that matters for them. That's the magic.
I get it. So we're using this sort of CSR opportunity as a showcase to solve a problem, but also to showcase your ability to solve problems.
Yes.
Okay. And I didn't say it as well as you did. So, but I love that example, and I think we should.
I think it's tied to purpose, though. That's it. Every organization that's really crisp and clear on their purpose can innovate more successfully because
Right.
they're linking what their purpose is and what they do for clients, right, to a way that can innovate. Whether that's with shoes, whether that's with cleaning up the ocean, whether it's so. There's a way to connect your purpose to it.
Okay, I think we're going to end this segment right here. When we get back, we're going to dive more into purpose and all of that good stuff.
You've been listening to another great interview on Renegade Thinkers Unite with Drew Neiser. But the value doesn't end there. As a listener, you can download a free ebook from Drew, Renegade Thinkers, interviews with 11 trailblazing CMOs any business can learn from. Top marketing thought leaders and proven executives from Time Warner, American Express, and Chico's, and others. Get your free copy at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook. For listeners only, at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook.
Okay, we're back. My guest is Diana O'Brien, CMO for Deloitte's U.S. and Global Operation. And I notice you guys, you obviously create a lot of content. And you do a lot of surveys. One of the surveys that you're involved with involves Duke and Fuqua and Christine Moorman's work on with CMOs. She was episode 63, and a shout out to the Duke and Fuqua people. But so talk a little bit about the power of doing a study like that or being a part of a study like that, and the fact that you've been doing it for a few years also is an interesting thing to me.
Yeah, it's been a tremendous relationship. We are so lucky to have the opportunity to partner with her. We've gained so many great insights that have gone into our business offerings that our people then take to market. That's really the value for us, we have partnered with her and we now have a deeper understanding of many issues. The robustness of her survey is terrific, and we're the beneficiaries of some of that insight that then we can take to the market. So our professionals, our consultants are out in the field educating others on that.
Interesting. Okay, so that the study is a lot of times with these programs, you want to make sure that you can get multiple levels of value out of them. Right. Is there anything, so doing it over several years, is there any advantage to doing it? Because a lot of times sort of companies will do a study once and then they'll move on.
Right. No, I think for us, again, it's having the foresight, which you get by understanding the trends. And so doing it over time with her has allowed us to see trends, to see shifts in spending, to see shifts in the way people are behaving, the priorities around issues. And that's then helped us to be better advisors to our clients.
Okay. So let's talk a lot about Deloitte marketing. I mean, you're such a large organization. You do many things and you do many big things. I was fortunate enough to participate with your U.S. Open golf sponsorship, and we did a fun thing at that event at the opening, and it was really impressive. I was in the elevator on the ride up, and a young lady, young by my standards, who is a consultant from L.A., is working on something that you have going at CES. Talk a little bit about how do you sort of, as the CMO of this global organization, make sure that these things that you're doing hold together, and like CES, why even be there?
Yeah, I'm excited about CES, by the way. I think we're going to have a tremendous marriage of some AI, some augmented reality, some in-person, all in our same environment where we're really going to help people envision what smart cities will feel and look like, and global mobility. And so I'm excited about what I think how we'll show up at CES this year. It's an important event. I do think that it is, for me at least, when I took this on in 2015, we were not a marketing organization. We were sales driven, and marketing was dispersed throughout the enterprise. And what we had the opportunity to do when they decided to name a CMO, which we had not had one previously, was to consolidate, really get the power of marketing and redefine what marketing meant for our firm. So previously I would have said some people felt marketing was how pretty you made the PowerPoint,
right,
and was all about the message, and it was about just the promotion of that message. The good news is that we've been able to redefine marketing, and we have elevated marketing so that marketing is at the executive, is part of the strategy, is embedded with talent. When we think about culture, we talk about how do we get those behaviors showing up in the marketplace. We connect those dots. Now we do that because we were able to clarify what strategic marketing was. We got strategic marketing into the organization. We didn't really have that before. And then we established some in-house agencies. And together, those implementations and the networks that we now have as a result create so much more consistency. We ended up with fewer campaigns, with stronger messages, fewer vendors, stronger lead streams, because we were able to get and really link it to strategy. We might have a specific sector strategy as an example, and we really understand now what our positioning is in that and how we might move that positioning, and then the campaigns that will drive that. That's been the biggest shift that we've made, and I think organizationally elevated marketing.
So B2B brands struggle with brand versus sort of demand generation, in terms of demand generation. In theory is easy to measure, even though we're talking long-term sales cycles. I see you in airports. I see you at major events. I'm going to see you at CES. Those are big brand things.
Yeah.
How do you measure those? Do you have a brand health tracking? How do you rationalize those investments?
We do brand surveys and have assessments around that. So we absolutely look at our the impact of our advertising in the airport, which we just recently, that is the first global campaign that we've done, Measure Your Impact campaign that we have. So we've had them in sort of key markets, the US or UK or Australia, but this was the first global one. So we are understanding who's seeing it, the impact. What I would tell you is some of the best elements of that has been the feedback we've gotten directly from CEOs. Who are interested and prompted. So I think it's understanding what's the difference between awareness and trying to build that. And what are you going to measure for awareness purposes? And we do, again, through the brand survey, get quite a bit of insight. But moving that through, again, thinking more strategically about the issues we want to own and where is it in the marketplace. Sometimes the issue isn't even as mature as it needs to be in order for us to be able to close a sale on it. So part of it is even educating the marketplace on the issue. When you think of what we're facing in digital transformation, that would be a perfect example. It's not about siloed digital solutions and projects going on now. It's really enterprise-wide thinking that has to go into your digital investments.
Do you have a tagline?
We make an impact that matters.
And that's the same as, because I didn't notice that on the billboards or anything.
It's where do you make your impact, right? So our purpose is we make an impact that matters. And so how we translate that internally to our people is where do you make an impact? And externally, it is we make an impact that matters for our clients. So it's not a tagline in the traditional way that goes under our brand name, but it is who we are. And if you asked any Deloitte professional anywhere in the world, they would say, if you ask them, what's your purpose? They would say to make an impact that matters. So our insides really do reflect our outsides, because that's what people are doing and activating in the marketplace. And our CEO, our global CEO, most recently went out with a very strong positioning around the social impact areas. And he said, we need to affect 50 million lives by helping them to prepare for the future, that there's opportunities and we can touch 50 million people and help them be ready for the new workforce. So that we're not part of necessarily just, taking people out of the marketplace, but really putting people back into the marketplace to work in a new economy.
How important, or maybe you could talk about how important it is that you have this employee alignment with your external message.
It's huge. It's everything. All 250,000 people are our brand ambassadors. They show up every day. So I spend a lot of time internally and with our chief talent officers to make sure that our brand is in our culture and is reflected in the behaviors that our people have showing up in the world.
When you say a lot of time, what does that...
50% of my time is
50% of your time is spent on internal activation of the brand idea.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
But it's worth it.
It is worth it. Because those are our people. Those are our products in the marketplace. They're showing up every day to influence our brand. And if they don't show up with that mindset of show empathy, walk in someone else's shoes, speak up when no one else will have a point of view, listen. If they don't do those things, then we haven't delivered on our brand promise.
The brand actually falls apart.
Exactly.
Right. And so it's walk the talk, talk the talk and walk the talk, at the same time. Now, and I wonder if that's because, as a services firm,
sure,
it's probably more important, but I want to generalize and say, I have to say probably if I asked the last 108 CMOs that I have interviewed for the show, I don't think many of them would have said, even some of the consulting firms, that they spent 50% of their time internally, which I, by the way, really believe is an important part of what it is. That's the product as you described it.
That's right.
Wow. Okay. So that's a reset. All those folks, CMOs, have been listening before, that's a reset. 50% of the time spending, because those are the people. It's like IBMers talking about it as well. It's like you don't interact with IBM, you interact with IBMers. That was an insight that they had a few years ago. But I think it's working better for you. Now, one of the things that you talked about is center brain set. This issue for a lot of marketers, left brain, right brain, art, science, and so forth. What do you mean by center brain?
Actually, I think of it as having a business brain. It's you need a business mindset to be a marketer today. You've got to bring the data and the analytics, and you need to bring creativity to the table. In the past, I'd say we had some folks that did analytics and some folks that did creativity, but they didn't come together. They weren't thinking about it and centering around business issues, client problems. What are we trying to solve for? And so when we think about it, you've got to get both sides of your brain in the conversation about clients. You can't just say, I have a great idea and here it can look, interesting and be provocative. It has to be grounded in true data and insights about where you're going, what markets you're serving, what your client needs.
Got it. Okay, I think I understand that. I'm going to circle back. I'm going back to the employee things. I'm definitely obsessed with that. If you're spending 50% of your time in that energy, then it would seem to me that also having an ongoing employee survey and understanding of the brand, that having research and data on their...
Yeah, absolutely. We do that every year.
So it's an annual study.
Yep.
And in that, what are some of the components of that study?
We ask them to, we look for whether or not they think they can bring their authentic self to work. They feel like they can show up and share their ideas. It's the same things. Do they feel like they're in an environment that we want them to create for our clients? So if they don't feel that they can speak up or bring their authentic self, if they don't feel that they are being shown empathy or being given the right tools, then they're not going to show up that way for our clients. And so I work closely with our chief talent officer in executing that survey, and we look for what are the brand implications to the concerns that our people have.
So interesting. And no, the questions that you ask really matter, because the questions are sort of putting what's important on the table.
Yes.
So really thinking those through. And I don't know if, because there are a lot of sort of standardized job satisfaction study, how likely are you to bring someone into the company, and sort of are you, satisfied in their job? And those don't really tell you that much,
That's
do
right.
they?
Like, are you being listened to? Do you feel you can share your ideas? Are you comfortable speaking up? If that answer starts to go down, then they're not going to be as comfortable speaking up at a client to share a new point of view. Or to say something that needs to be said.
And can you get a sense, are these sort of early indicators of other issues that sort of you can once you get the results from that study, you can sort of map out and say, oh, we got to work a little bit over here on our internal.
Oh, sure. We take each one and then come up with an action plan around how we will, again, help to internalize. It just comes back to if your people don't feel a certain way, they aren't going to show up on the outside world that way. And that is critical for us. The insides have to look like the outsides.
Love it. This is really important. I hope all of you are still with me. I've got a few more questions here. We're just going to focus on the future as we move forward. We look to the year ahead. What do you think is the single biggest challenge that B2B marketers face in the near future?
I mean, I do think it's cutting through the noise. It's there's so much that's digital. There's so much noise. There's so much data happening all the time, which is why our earlier point about face-to-face, real communication, empathetic listening are so important.
And those things those are always challenges,
yeah.
But I think the emphasis on digital and digital communications and sort of is the risk is that it's not human.
Right.
And there's a lot of conversation that AI can replace some of this, and we can and do that. Where do you think AI is the technology that will sort of bridge this gap and sort of create some of the empathy that would make digital work better?
Well, I think absolutely it'll make digital work better. I don't think it'll replace the need for people and humans. As long as humans are out engaging in the world, humans will continue to be needed to support them. So, but I think there are a lot of great things happening in technology that will help to accelerate our understanding.
Is there one marketing technology that you think that's rising to the top that you're looking at and going, okay, we really need to use that next year more than we have in the past?
Well, we're pushing on augmented and virtual reality, and both of those we're going to be showing some things at CES.
AR and VR. Okay. What's your top priority for 2019?
Well, it's interesting because we've been on this 3-year growth journey, and I think we've met the expectations that we said we wanted to establish Deloitte as a destination marketing organization. So I think that we've accomplished that. I think what we now need to do is we need to ensure that we can get some of the key messaging around our global platforms consistent around the globe. So we've built the infrastructure. We've become a destination for marketing. And now what I'd like to see is our global campaigns and the things that we're doing across all of our businesses and sectors to be more unified. So it ties it all together.
Love that, because that's really, we just can't remember that much.
Yep.
We need one sort of core idea,
yep.
And we need to hear it over and over and over again. I was listening to just finishing up Seth Godin's latest book, This is Marketing. And he talks about the time to change the campaign is only after the accountant says I've heard it too many times, because if employees and customers think they've heard it too many times, you're still not there yet.
Exactly.
Anyway, I love that. So frequency and consistency are going to be important. Is there one thing you hope marketers won't be talking about in 2019?
I guess I hope they're not talking about just the distraction of technology. I just think we've had too much of that. And I'd like to get back to the basics of marketing. I do think it centers around, is the customer at the center of your organization? Are you looking at all the moments that you have for a client and creating an experience that's world class? Are you using strategic moves that I think are reflective of creating that? And are you linking it to meaning? So those are the M's in my mind. It's mindset, it's moments, it's moves, and it's meaning. It's no longer the small M of message. It's those things. And if you pull those 4 things together, I think you'll be a world-class marketer.
I love it. What a wonderful place to wrap this up. I usually try to wrap it up, but I don't have to, because you've given us the 4 M's. Repeat them one more time.
It's mindset, it's moments, it's moves, and it's meaning.
All right. There, you've heard it. Okay. So you have 4 M's to take with you. As always, first of all, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, so great.
Really enjoyed it. Wonderful doing it in person. For all the listeners, thank you just for spending the time with us here. I hope you got a lot out of it. If you did, be sure to share it with a friend. Also, feel free to subscribe, but if you haven't already. And until next week, keep those renegade thinking caps on and strong.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.